Ladies, let me tell you something real. If you've ever sat there wondering, why does he pull away when things start to get real? Or why doesn't he fall the way I do? You're not alone. But here's the truth, and it's both simpler and more powerful than you think. A man falls in love when he feels like he can be fully himself and still be fully chosen. It's not the perfectly styled hair or the flawless makeup or how agreeable you are on every date. It's the feeling he gets when he's around you. The feeling that says, I don't have to perform here. I'm safe. I'm seen. When it comes to creating a lasting emotional bond with a man, the foundation isn't just built on chemistry, physical attraction, or witty conversation. While those things can spark initial interest, they don't sustain a meaningful connection. What truly makes a man fall deeply, the kind of love that lasts, grows, and makes him choose you again and again, is emotional safety. This is the space where he can lower his guard, show his true self, and feel seen without judgment. And here's the truth most people overlook. Men may not always articulate it, but they crave emotional safety just as much as women do. They're just often taught not to ask for it. That's why when they find it, they hold on. Emotional safety begins with how you respond to his vulnerability. Most men live in a world where they are expected to be strong, decisive, and emotionally in control. So when a man opens up even a little about something personal, uncertain, or emotional, it's a big deal. The way you respond in those moments either builds a bridge or a wall. If your response is to criticize, dismiss, or rush to fix him, he'll retreat. But if you simply listen without needing to solve or judge, you're showing him something rare, that he can be imperfect and still accepted. That's the kind of environment where love grows, when he feels emotionally naked and doesn't fear being shamed or rejected for it. This doesn't mean becoming his emotional dumping ground or therapist. It's not about carrying his emotional burdens. Instead, it's about being the kind of woman who knows how to hold space. That means giving him room to be heard, letting his emotions exist without needing to interrupt, and resisting the urge to make everything about you. Many relationships become emotionally unsafe, not because one person is cruel, but because there's no space for honesty. Emotional safety is about creating that space where both people can bring their full selves to the table without fear of being dismissed or controlled. Another powerful way to foster emotional safety is through consistency. Men, like anyone, start to relax when they sense that your words and actions align. If you say you're understanding but punish him emotionally when he's late or stressed, that inconsistency breaks trust. Emotional safety is born from reliability. He needs to know that the version of you he meets today isn't a complete departure from the one he met last week. This doesn't mean you can't have moods or off days, but the more you operate from a steady emotional baseline, the more secure he'll feel. A man falls deeper when he doesn't have to walk on eggshells, trying to figure out which version of you he's going to get. Empathy is another key element. Being empathetic doesn't mean agreeing with everything he says or tolerating things that go against your values. It means taking a moment to understand where he's coming from before reacting. A lot of conflict escalates not because of the core issue, but because people feel unseen or misunderstood. If he shares a frustration and your first reaction is to tell him how he should feel instead, that creates resistance. But when you say, I get why that would bother you, even if you don't fully agree, you give him the sense that you're not against him, you're with him. That's the feeling that makes him want to open up more, try harder, and invest deeper. Creating emotional safety also means having emotional self-control. If every disagreement turns into a dramatic fight, tears, or blame, he'll begin to associate your connection with emotional chaos rather than comfort. That doesn't mean bottling up your feelings or avoiding tough conversations. It means knowing how to express your emotions without making the other person responsible for fixing them. When you can calmly communicate your feelings, you become someone he can emotionally trust. And emotional trust is one of the deepest forms of intimacy. Lastly, let's talk about acceptance. Emotional safety isn't about letting everything slide or having no standards, but it is about accepting who he is, not just who you want him to be. When you try to mold or manage him, he feels like a project, but when he feels respected for the man he is, even if he's still evolving, that's when he feels safe enough to want to grow with you. Acceptance doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior. It means separating his identity from his mistakes. It's saying, I see your flaws and I'm still here because I see your heart too. That level of acceptance isn't weakness, it's strength. And it's in that kind of space, free of performance and pressure, that real love begins to take root. One of the most powerful shifts a woman can make in dating and relationships is to stop centering her life around the idea of being chosen and start centering it around living with purpose. When a woman is grounded in her purpose, in her passions, her goals, her growth, she naturally becomes magnetic. Not because she's trying to impress or win anyone over, but because she's already full, already lit up from within. This kind of energy doesn't chase or cling. It doesn't revolve around whether a man calls, commits, or compliments. It exists independently of the relationship, and that's exactly what draws a man in on a deeper level. Men are wired to admire. They're drawn to strength not in a forceful or domineering sense, but in the sense of a woman who knows who she is and refuses to lose herself in the process of loving someone else. When a woman makes her life rich and meaningful outside of a relationship, she removes the pressure that so many people unconsciously put on their partners, the pressure to be their everything. A man doesn't fall in love with someone who needs him to complete her. He falls in love with someone who already feels complete and simply chooses to share that life with him. This is the difference between needing a relationship and choosing one. Needing implies emptiness. Choosing implies fullness. When your days are already filled with things that matter to you, whether it's your work, your creative pursuits, your friendships, your health, or your spiritual growth, you become someone who doesn't just date better, but lives better. You bring joy to the relationship instead of trying to extract it from it. This is especially important because many women have been subtly conditioned to believe that their value increases when they are in a relationship, that somehow being partnered means they've made it, while being single signals that something is missing. This outdated belief system causes so many to lose themselves the moment someone shows interest. They start to rearrange their schedules, shift their priorities, and in extreme cases abandon their ambitions just to be more available, more agreeable, more desirable. But the irony is, that's when attraction begins to fade. A man may enjoy the attention at first, but over time he senses the shift. He no longer sees her as the independent, vibrant woman he first met, but someone who slowly melted into the background of his life. That's not love. That's dependence disguised as devotion. Living your purpose means being deeply rooted in the things that light you up and refusing to put that flame out for someone else's convenience or comfort. It means maintaining your own identity even when you're in love. It's about showing up in the relationship as a whole person, not just a supportive sidekick. When a man sees that you're passionate about your career, your mission, your self-growth, or even your creative expression, he doesn't feel less important. He feels inspired. Healthy men don't want to be the center of your world. They want to be a valuable part of it. They respect women who have something bigger than the relationship driving them forward. This doesn't mean you become cold, emotionally unavailable, or detached. It simply means you refuse to lose the parts of yourself that made you radiant in the first place. And purpose doesn't have to be some grand, world-changing mission. It can be as personal as committing to your fitness goals, starting a passion project, learning a new skill, or building a life that feels rich with meaning and intention. When your life has direction, your relationship naturally becomes more balanced. You won't settle for someone just because they give you attention. You'll look for someone who aligns with your vision, who complements your path, not competes with it or tries to steer you off course. The truth is, relationships built on purpose are more resilient. When two people are individually fulfilled, they can come together not out of lack, but out of abundance. They challenge each other, support each other, and grow together, not because they have to, but because they want to. Purpose fuels confidence, and confidence is deeply attractive. When you carry yourself like someone who knows where she's going, you don't need to chase or prove anything. You invite love by living fully. And in that space, a man doesn't just fall in love with what you give him. He falls in love with the life you've built and the woman you've become in the process. There's a major difference between setting standards and giving ultimatums, and understanding that difference can change the entire dynamic of your relationships. Standards come from a place of self-worth. They are an internal compass that guides how you allow others to treat you, what kind of behavior you accept, and what kind of energy you surround yourself with. Ultimatums, on the other hand, often come from a place of fear of losing someone, fear of not being enough, fear of staying stuck in something that doesn't feel right. When you set a standard, you're saying, this is what I expect because I value myself. When you give an ultimatum, you're usually trying to force someone to behave a certain way, often out of frustration or desperation. One invites respect, the other invites resistance. Men don't respond well to pressure. It makes them feel controlled. And when someone feels controlled, their natural instinct is to pull away. Ultimatums often sound like threats. If you don't commit, I'm gone. Or if you don't change, I won't stick around. These statements rarely create lasting change. And even if they do result in temporary compliance, they don't inspire real connection. You might get the behavior you demanded, but not the genuine desire behind it. That's the danger of ultimatums. They create behavior that is driven by fear of loss, not love or respect. A man might step up just to avoid losing you, but underneath that action is resentment, not appreciation. Standards, however, operate from a completely different energy. They are communicated calmly, clearly, and confidently. You're not trying to scare someone into doing the right thing. You're simply letting them know what aligns with your life and what doesn't. You don't threaten, you don't manipulate. You just stand in your truth. If you value consistency, you don't beg for someone to show up. You observe whether they do. If you value communication, you don't chase down someone who ghosts you. You disengage and move towards someone who does show up with presence. You're not making dramatic announcements about what you will or won't tolerate. You're just living according to what you've already decided you deserve. What makes standards powerful is that they're not about the other person. They're about you. They don't depend on someone else changing to validate your needs. They're rooted in your values, and they require you to be honest with yourself about what you're willing to accept. Many people say they have standards, but then continually override them when they're afraid of losing someone. That's not a standard, that's a preference with no boundaries. Real standards have follow-through. They require action, not just words. It's easy to say you want honesty, but if you continue to engage with someone who lies or withholds, your actions are saying otherwise. Your standards are only as strong as your willingness to uphold them, even when it's uncomfortable. Men respect women who live by their standards because it shows maturity and emotional strength. It sends a clear message: I know what I bring to the table, and I won't trade my peace or integrity just to keep someone around. This isn't about being rigid or unwilling to compromise. It's about knowing the difference between compromise and self-betrayal. Compromise is healthy when it happens between two people who are both invested. Self-betrayal happens when you lower your standards just to hold on to someone who isn't truly choosing you. That dynamic never leads to real fulfillment. Instead, it creates imbalance, resentment, and confusion. Setting standards also requires a certain level of emotional detachment from outcomes. You have to be okay with the fact that someone may walk away when you communicate what you need. That's not a loss, that's clarity. When you state a standard and someone backs off, they're doing you a favor. They're showing you that they're not aligned with the kind of relationship you're building. Letting them go isn't a punishment. It's a redirection towards something more authentic. When you start dating from a place of grounded standards, the people who don't align will naturally fall away, and the people who respect what you stand for will be drawn closer. Ultimately, standards teach people how to treat you, not because you demand it, but because you model it. You communicate with kindness but firmness. You stay open but discerning. You invite connection but never beg for it. You become someone who doesn't have to constantly explain her worth because she lives it in every choice she makes. And when a man truly sees a woman who values herself enough to stand by what she believes, that's not something he wants to lose. That's someone he wants to rise for. Challenging a man in a playful, positive way is one of the most effective and underrated ways to deepen connection and spark lasting attraction. This doesn't mean playing games, being manipulative, or creating unnecessary tension. It means showing up with a strong sense of self, being willing to speak your mind, and inviting him to step into the best version of himself without pressure or judgment. Men are naturally drawn to a sense of excitement, fun, and growth in a relationship. When a woman can challenge him in a way that feels energizing rather than threatening, he not only respects her more, but also feels more alive in her presence. It's not about proving yourself or putting him in his place. It's about bringing out the best in each other while keeping things light, fun, and emotionally stimulating. A playful challenge might be as simple as teasing him with a smirk when he's bragging or calling him out lovingly when he's trying to impress you. It's not cruel, it's cheeky. It's the kind of banter that makes him think, wow, she's not afraid of me. She sees right through me, and she likes what she sees. It sends the message that you're not just another person trying to win his approval. You're confident, grounded, and fully engaged in the moment. This kind of energy is rare and refreshing. It shows him that being with you is not just emotionally safe, but also mentally engaging. Part of challenging a man in a positive way is holding your own in conversation and not being afraid to disagree with him. Too many people think that agreeing on everything is the way to build closeness, but the opposite is often true. When you express a different opinion with confidence, curiosity, and a sense of humor, it adds dimension to the relationship. It shows that you're not trying to mold yourself into his preferences. You're standing in your truth while remaining open to his. This balance creates respect. It says, I'm not here to argue or dominate. I'm here to connect honestly. And it gives him permission to do the same. Being a positive challenge also means having high standards without being harsh about them. It's about holding space for him to rise without demanding it. For example, if he's being inconsistent, instead of scolding or threatening to leave, you can say something like, I know you've got a lot going on, but I really value consistency. It's something that helps me feel connected. So if we're not on the same page, that's okay. I just want to be honest about where I'm at. That statement is clear, strong, and kind. It invites him to step up if he's ready without trying to control him. That's a challenge rooted in self-respect, not fear. It says, I know my value, and I'm giving you the opportunity to meet me there. This kind of challenge also involves refusing to shrink yourself to avoid intimidating him. A lot of women, especially those who are high achieving or outspoken, feel pressure to tone it down so they don't scare a man off. But that's the exact opposite of what creates true attraction. A man who's emotionally mature and ready for real connection is not looking for someone who flatters his ego. He's looking for someone who engages his spirit. When you bring your ambition, your humor, your intelligence, and your full personality to the table, you invite him to bring his full self too. That's a challenge, but the kind that energizes, not overwhelms. The most powerful challenges come from a place of deep authenticity and joy. When you're genuinely happy with your life, comfortable in your skin, and emotionally secure, your energy becomes contagious. You don't need to chase or persuade anyone, you simply are, and that presence alone becomes a challenge, not in a combative way, but in an inspiring one. He starts to think, if I want to keep up with her, I need to show up fully, I need to be intentional, I need to be better. That's the kind of dynamic that creates mutual growth. It's not about competing with each other, it's about calling each other higher in a way that feels exciting and expansive. A playful, positive challenge also shows up in the way you flirt, the way you express boundaries, and the way you handle moments of conflict. You can assert yourself without hostility. You can push back without being cold. You can disagree without disrespecting. That balance takes emotional intelligence and inner confidence, but when you master it, you create a space where both of you feel more alive. You keep the spark alive not by walking on eggshells or forcing closeness, but by being fully yourself and inviting him to rise to the occasion. Not because he has to, but because something about you makes him want to. When you create emotional safety, live with purpose, set clear standards, and challenge him playfully, you build a connection based on depth, respect, and genuine attraction. These qualities invite a man to fall not just for your presence, but for the powerful, authentic woman you are at your core.